Do you remember the sound of a car door closing with that heavy, solid click? The kind of sound that felt permanent, like the start of something important? Do you remember sliding across warm vinyl seats that stuck slightly to the backs of your legs under the summer sun? The faint smell of gasoline drifting in through open windows. The dashboard glowing softly as the gauges flickered to life? Do you remember sitting there quietly, watching your father fold the road map one last time, listening to the rumble of the engine idling in the driveway, feeling the whole car gently vibrate beneath you like it was ready to move before you were? Maybe you pressed your forehead to the glass, watching the neighbors wave from their front porches. Maybe your mother passed back snacks wrapped in wax paper. Maybe a sibling argued over who got the window seat. Or maybe you just sat there taking it all in, not knowing you were in the middle of moments you'd never forget. Because back then, the open road didn't just take us somewhere, it made us feel free. It made us feel older than we were and younger than we'd ever be again. Every drive carried the feeling that something good was waiting ahead. A visit to Grandma's house down a country road lined with tall trees. A weekend picnic at a lake you only saw once a year. A long ride toward glowing motel signs and roadside diners where the smell of burgers and fresh coffee drifted out into the warm night air. We didn't have GPS voices telling us where to turn. We followed folding maps covered in pencil marks and half-remembered directions. We trusted gas station attendants to point the way. And half the time, the best moments happened when we got a little lost. The radio played softly in the background. Crooners, early rock and roll, the crackle of ball games and weather reports. And even when the music faded, the steady rhythm of tires on pavement filled the space instead. It wasn't just travel. It was togetherness. It was everyone packed into one moving little world. Elbows touching, stories being told, laughter drifting forward from the back seat. No phones, no screens, just voices, sunlight through wide windows, and the endless ribbon of road stretching out ahead. And without realizing it, we were building memories that would stay with us for a lifetime. Moments so ordinary then, yet so powerful now. Because when we think back on those days, we don't just remember the cars. We remember how it felt to be there. The excitement before the engine turned over, the quiet peace as the road stretched on. The way time seemed to slow enough for us to notice everything. The colors of passing fields, the shapes of distant hills, the warmth of family all around us inside that rolling metal shell. It was a golden age of travel, when the journey mattered as much as the destination, when even the smallest drive felt like an adventure waiting to unfold. And tonight, we're stepping back into that world together, back into the era of classic cars and chrome reflections in the evening sun, of drive-ins glowing beneath star-filled skies, of road trips that stitched families closer with every mile. Back to a time when you sat in the passenger seat, watching America roll past your window, not knowing that one day you would look back on those rides with a quiet smile and the soft ache of beautiful remembering. Because life was slower then. Chapter 1. The Cars That Shaped a Generation. You probably remember the first time a brand new car appeared on your street. Not announced, not advertised, just there one morning, parked proudly in a familiar driveway, shining a little brighter than everything else around it. The neighbors noticed immediately. Someone leaned over their fence. Kids rode down on bicycles to get a closer look. Men wandered out, holding coffee cups just to take a peek. Because a new car in the 1950s wasn't just transportation, it was an event. Maybe it was a sleek Chevrolet Bel Air, a proud Ford Fairlane, a long, graceful Oldsmobile with chrome stretching from bumper to bumper. Maybe you remember the sunlight flashing off those tail fins, bright metallic wings pointing toward the future, and maybe you pressed your face to the living room window, watching those polished curves glide past, wondering what it must feel like to ride inside. Do you remember that sense of awe? That feeling that cars didn't just carry people, they carried dreams. The first look, a child's fascination. The first thing you probably noticed was how big they felt. The doors were heavy, closing with that firm, confident click that made everything sound solid, permanent. The steering wheels were enormous, smooth and white, warm from the sun if the car had been sitting outside. And the seats, not bucket seats like today, but wide bench seats, where everyone sat shoulder to shoulder, your leg pressed lightly against a sibling's, a parent's arm resting along the seat back behind you. Vinyl would stick gently to your skin on summer afternoons. And sometimes, if the window cracked open just right, the smell of leather mixed with gasoline drifted in, a scent you still recognize immediately today. Some memories never leave your nose, and maybe you remember climbing inside, not with urgency but with ceremony. Dad unlocking the door carefully, Mom smoothing your clothes before letting you slide onto the seat. You settling into your spot, feeling the faint vibration of the engine before it ever moved. Everything in those cars felt important. The dashboard wasn't cluttered, just large glowing gauges, speedometer numbers wide enough to read from space, radio dials that clicked heavily as they turned, and the radio always playing softly in the background, crooners, early rock and roll, or maybe a baseball broadcast crackling through the speaker. And while adults discussed engine power or gas mileage, you just stared at the world unfolding beyond the windshield. Wide streets, telephone poles ticking by like a steady heartbeat, the sky impossibly big above it all. The pride of ownership. For families of the 1950s, owning a car meant something new, freedom. Before that, many families depended on trains, rides from neighbors, or whatever travel they could manage. But suddenly, you could go anywhere, to picnics, to Sunday drives, to lakes 2 counties away, to roadside diners glowing at dusk, to grandma's house without complicated planning. And you felt that pride when your family had their own car. Doesn't matter if it was brand new or bought used. Your car mattered because it was yours. Maybe your father washed it every weekend, hose water running down the driveway, sponge scrubbing the hood with almost tender care. Maybe you helped him dry it, wiping streaky reflections away while avoiding the hot metal. Maybe your mother insisted nobody ate inside. No crumbs, no spills. This is our good car. And at night, when the garage light switched off, you might peek inside one last time, the faint silhouette of the car resting quietly, like it was sleeping. The community experience. In the 1950s, cars weren't enjoyed in isolation. They were shared experiences. Neighbors took turns riding together. Families carpooled to church. Kids piled into back seats for birthday outings. Teenagers hovered at street corners admiring engines they couldn't yet drive. If someone bought a new model, the whole street knew. Kids memorized the tail fin shapes. Adults discussed the price. Friends asked for a ride, and everyone knew which driveway held the nice car. You might remember walking past it just to look, the polished hubcaps reflecting your shoes, your face appearing warped across curved chrome. Gentle history, a boom on wheels. There was a reason all those cars appeared at once. By the mid-1950s, America was on the move. Post-war prosperity meant families could finally afford vehicles. Factories were booming, jobs were steady, and highways were expanding faster every year. Millions of families bought their first ever car during this decade, and millions more traded in older models for shiny new designs that seemed to change every season. Longer bodies, higher fins, bigger grills, bold new paint colors. Colors popped like nothing before. Sky blues, creamy yellows, cherry reds, seafoam greens. Cars suddenly expressed personality. They weren't just machines anymore. They were symbols of the good life. Symbols that said, we're going somewhere. A child's eye view. But what mattered most wasn't the horsepower, wasn't the chrome, wasn't the sales numbers. What mattered was how it felt to you. To sit in the back seat as the road opened ahead, to watch fields blur past, to see towns roll by with signs you couldn't yet pronounce, to count license plates from other states, to rest your head against warm glass as the engine hummed beneath you, safe, content, together. A whole family moving through the world as one. No headphones, no screens, just voices drifting forward, parents chatting quietly, siblings laughing, someone tapping their fingers to the radio beat, and somehow everything felt right. Micro refrain. We didn't have much, but we had enough. Enough road to explore, enough togetherness to matter, enough wonder to fill a child's heart. Reflection. Looking back now, it wasn't the cars that shaped a generation. It was what they gave us. Time together. Shared journeys, evenings chasing sunsets down unfamiliar roads. Moments when the world felt wide open, and you felt like anything was possible. Those long bench seats weren't just seats. They were childhood classrooms. They taught us how to listen, how to observe, how to be present. Because when you're riding in a car with the people you love, and the road stretches endlessly ahead, there's nothing to do but remember being alive. And maybe, as you listen right now, you can still feel it. That seat beneath you, the hum of the engine, the breeze coming through cracked windows, the warm certainty that, for that moment, you belonged exactly where you were. Chapter 2. The Family Road Trip. Do you remember that feeling? The kind you got before the car even started, when the whole house felt different because you knew you were going somewhere? Maybe it began early in the morning, before the sun was fully awake. Suitcases stood open on the bed, clothes folded tighter than usual, your mother smoothing out shirts, tucking socks into the corners like small anchors to keep everything neat. You probably remember the blankets, those thick, familiar ones folded and refolded for comfort in the back seat, because long drives always needed something soft to lean against when sleep came. Out in the driveway, the family station wagon waited, long, wide, dependable, like a promise on 4 wheels. Coolers stacked near the garage door, paper lunch bags lined up on the kitchen counter. Dad stepping back and forth, loading the trunk with practiced care, sliding suitcases beside the spare tire, pressing things down just far enough so the lid would close. And somehow, it always did. Windows rolled down, not smoothly, but with that steady whir of the hand crank, letting the summer air rush inside before the engine even turned over. You might remember standing there, watching from the porch, the car packed tighter than it seemed possible, and thinking, this is really happening. The great back seat scramble. Then came the moment every kid remembers, the dash to the car. Someone always called the back seat first, and someone always argued they'd gotten there first. You probably remember sliding across hot vinyl, trying to claim your spot by the window, because the window seat meant control over the breeze and the best view of the world rolling past. Legs got tangled, doors slammed shut one by one, elbows found new resting places, and finally, everyone was in. Your mom might have turned around just then, handing you a comic book or a deck of cards or a brown paper sack with a sandwich wrapped neatly in wax paper. Maybe she said something like, "Don't lose that. You'll want something to do on the ride." Because she knew what every parent knew back then. Long drives were a test of patience and imagination. On the road, Dad turned the key. The engine hummed to life, that low, steady vibration moving through the floorboards and into the seat beneath you. The radio flickered on. A crooner's voice drifted through the cabin, or maybe a ball game commentary crackled softly. Mom checked to make sure everyone had shoes on, and then tires rolled forward. The car eased out of the driveway, gravel crunching beneath the wheels, neighbors waving from lawn chairs, kids still riding bicycles in lazy circles down the block. The familiar street slipped away behind you, and just like that, the adventure had begun. The feel of the open road. Do you remember that wind? The way it rushed through the open windows, warm and unpredictable, tugging at loose hair and fluttering the edges of comic book pages. The sudden squeal of tires as Dad pulled onto the highway. That tiny thrill in your chest when the speed picked up and the houses gave way to open roads, trees, and long stretches of sky. The smell of summer came in waves, hot pavement, fresh cut grass along the roadside, occasionally even the faint scent of gasoline drifting through the open windows, and every mile felt like a small victory. Mile markers flashing by, maps being unfolded and refolded up front, Mom tracing the route with her finger while Dad nodded and kept driving. Because back then, maps didn't talk. They waited patiently until someone asked for help. Lost and laughing. Do you remember getting a little lost? Maybe more than once. Dad slowing the car at unfamiliar intersections. Mom reading out directions that didn't quite line up with the road signs. Everyone leaning forward just a little as if that might magically fix things. Eventually, the adults would laugh it off. We'll find it, and usually you did, but more often than not, getting turned around led to something special. An unexpected roadside diner with buzzing neon lights, a scenic overlook with picnic tables beneath tall shade trees, a quiet town where time seemed to move even slower than it did back home. Those unplanned stops often became the moments that stayed with you longest, because sometimes the best memories came from detours. Gas stations and stretch breaks. Every long trip meant gas station stops, pulling beneath those shaded canopies. The ding of the service bell as an attendant stepped out with a smile, windshields wiped clean, gas caps twisted open, Mom counting change in her purse, kids stretching stiff legs by the pump, running little races around the car until someone called, "Don't go far." Paper cups of soda balanced carefully on the trunk lid. Cold air wafting out of open doors like a welcome break from the heat. Those stops were brief, but they made the journey feel real, not just moving, but traveling, together in motion. Inside the car, the world kept turning smaller. Everyone packed close, stories drifting forward from the back seat, Dad tapping the steering wheel in time with the radio. Maybe someone counted license plates from out of state. Maybe punches were played on the arm when boredom set in. Maybe sleep took over eventually, your head resting against that folded blanket, roadside light flickering across closed eyelids. You might remember waking just long enough to see the sky shift from bright blue to soft evening gold, the sun sinking low behind distant trees, knowing without even looking at the map that you were closer than before. The heart of the journey, because those family road trips weren't just about destinations. They were about togetherness. No screens lighting up separate worlds, no headphones closing off quiet spaces, just one shared ride through unfamiliar roads and familiar laughter. You were all there, listening to the same music, seeing the same scenery, telling the same stories, in one moving circle of family, and maybe, without realizing it, you were storing away memories that would feel warmer every year you grew older, moments made of nothing special at the time, yet everything now. The gentle question. So let me ask you, where did your family go on your favorite summer trip? Was it a crowded beach town with salty air and boardwalk lights? A lakeside campground where the smell of campfires drifted late into the evening? A cousin's farm down a long country road no map seemed to match perfectly? Or maybe just a small town visit to Grandma, where the destination mattered less than the journey itself? Wherever it was, you probably still carry that road with you. The hum of tires beneath vinyl seats, the wind through cracked windows, the feeling of belonging as the car carried everyone forward together. Because back then, we didn't travel alone, we traveled together. And those shared miles stitched families closer, one road trip at a time. Life was slower then, and somehow every mile felt like it lasted just a little bit longer. Chapter 3. Route 66 and Roadside America. Do you remember the moment when the neighborhoods slipped behind you and the world finally started to open wide? When the houses grew farther apart, the sidewalks disappeared, and the road began to stretch so long and straight it felt like it might never end. That was the moment when the journey truly began. The moment when you realized you weren't just traveling anymore, you were exploring. By the mid-1950s, families were pouring onto America's highways in numbers never seen before, station wagons heavy with luggage, children, picnic baskets, and possibility. And at the heart of it all was Route 66, the Mother Road, a ribbon of concrete stretching from Illinois to California, joining hundreds of little towns together like glowing beads on a string. You probably remember seeing that shield-shaped sign appear at the edge of the road, Route 66, bold, simple, magical. And every time you passed one, your heart gave that little jump. Because miles didn't just represent distance back then, they represented freedom. You watched the scenery change in slow motion from your window. Rolling farmland gave way to dusty deserts. Red barns faded into wide open plains. Mountains rose slowly on the horizon like something from a storybook. Every mile felt new. Every mile felt like discovery. And even the smallest stops along the way felt important. You probably remember pulling up to one of those classic roadside diners just as evening fell. Neon signs warmed the dusk. hot pie, coffee, malts. The glow reflected off the chrome trim of the cars lined up outside like polished jewels. Inside, the scent of coffee met warm pie crust the moment the door swung open. A long counter lined with spinning stools, the gentle scrape of plates, the waitress, always with a smile too big for her tired feet, calling out, "2 meatloaf specials." Kids pressed noses to glass display cases, staring at towering lemon meringue pies and thick slices of apple stacked impossibly high. And somehow, pie always tasted better on the road. Maybe it was the hunger from the day's miles. Maybe it was the joy of being somewhere new. Or maybe it was the magic of knowing you were exactly where you were supposed to be. And then there were the stalls, tiny souvenir stands stretched along the roadside like treasure outposts, wooden racks filled with postcards, keychains shaped like cactuses, and cowboy hats, rubber tomahawks. Little ceramic animals painted too brightly to be real. You stretched your allowance as far as it could go, debating over pennies and nickels. Do you get the postcard or the tiny toy? Do you buy the souvenir spoon or the magnet for the fridge at home? Every purchase felt monumental, proof that you'd been somewhere, seen something, lived something new. And when you finally climbed back into the car clutching your tiny prize, it felt like you were carrying a piece of the road with you. Gas stations were an adventure all their own, not the quiet self-service places we know now, but bustling little crossroads of humanity, big globe pumps spinning in seaside colors, red, green, and blue, tall enough to look like lighthouses beside the road. Attendants jogged out in pressed uniforms and peaked caps, smiling wide as they waved you in. The bell would ding when the car pulled over, windows wiped by hand, oil checked, maps unfolded across the hood. Kids wandered the lot stretching cramped legs, hearing the gravel crunch beneath their shoes. You might remember standing by the soda machines, waiting patiently as bottles clinked inside glass coolers, that satisfying scrape of a cold root beer bottle against your palm. And while your father talked directions with the attendant, you stared off at the horizon, already ready for the next miracle up the road. Even the places you stayed felt special. You remember the motor courts, neat little clusters of single-story rooms arranged around glowing parking spaces. Each room had its own private door, and you could walk straight from the car into bed without ever passing through a lobby. Neon vacancy signs buzzed gently overhead. Some flickered, some hummed, and all of them promised rest to tired travelers. The rooms smelled of clean linens and faint soap. Curtains fluttered as nighttime air drifted in through cracked windows. After long days of riding, that first moment when you stretched out on the bed, feet finally off the floor, was pure relief. And while parents unpacked the suitcases, you probably stood outside a moment longer looking up at the stars, so bright away from city lights, wondering just how far you had come today. And through it all, the road kept calling. Every morning, the engine would rumble back to life. Maps would fold and refold. Coffee would steam against the windshield. And once again, you'd feel that quiet thrill in your chest. Where will today take us? Every mile felt new. Every roadside stop held a little magic. Every curve of the road felt like an invitation to wonder. Because traveling in the 1950s wasn't about the fastest route. It wasn't about convenience. It was about experiencing the country one moment at a time. Life was slower. But the world felt bigger, bigger because you could feel it, bigger because it unfolded face first through wide windows instead of screens, bigger because every stop was personal. Every local diner had a story. Every gas station had its own voices and laughter, and most of all, the world felt bigger because you were seeing it together. Families connected by shared miles, children falling asleep against car doors, waking somewhere new. Parents driving long after sunset to reach the next glowing sign on the horizon. Those miles didn't just take you across America. They brought people closer to each other. So when we remember Route 66, we don't just remember a famous road. We remember freedom. We remember the feeling of discovery. We remember seeing America stretch out wide for the very first time through the eyes of a child, with the heart of an explorer. And maybe, even now, when you glimpse a diner glowing at dusk, or see an old motel sign flicker to life, something soft stirs in your chest, because the memory doesn't fade, it only waits, ready to take you back to the days when life was slower, but the world felt bigger. Chapter 4. Drive-in, diners, and soda fountains. Do you remember the moment when the car wasn't just for family trips anymore, but suddenly meant freedom? Maybe it was the first time your parents handed over the keys for just a quick drive. Maybe it was being dropped off with friends beneath buzzing neon lights. Maybe it was simply sitting in the passenger seat, heart racing a little faster than usual, knowing this night belonged to you. Because at the edge of nearly every town in the 1950s, there was magic waiting after sunset. A drive-in diner glowing against the darkening sky, chrome railings shimmering beneath neon signs, the air thick with the smell of hot fries and grilled burgers drifting across warm pavement, and those roller skating servers, you remember them, don't you? Bright uniforms, perfect balance. Smooth glides between long rows of parked cars. They'd roll up with a smile, clip those metal food trays right onto your open car window, and suddenly your family sedan or your buddy's dad's borrowed coupe felt like the finest restaurant in town. You'd hear the gentle thump as the tray locked into place. Milkshakes trembling in tall frosted glasses. Paper-wrapped burgers steaming. French fries spilling across wax paper. And that sound. Do you remember the sound of soda glasses clicking together when friends laughed? The low hum of a jukebox drifting from inside the diner wall? The hiss of grills and the pop of fry baskets rising behind the scenes? All of it blending into the soundtrack of growing up. Maybe this was the place where you first felt grown up. Maybe you sat there pretending not to notice someone across the lot glancing your way. Maybe a boy nervously practiced what he was going to say. Maybe a girl fixed her hair in the mirror again and again, trying to look confident while her heart fluttered inside her chest. Milkshakes were almost always shared then, two straws leaning toward each other, hands brushing accidentally, both pretending not to notice that small, electric moment. And in that simple, innocent closeness, you felt something new awaken. It wasn't the kind of love the movies talked about, but it was real, it was nervous, it was exciting, it was tender and hopeful. Maybe your first crush lived in that drive-in booth, under the glow of flickering neon letters. You could feel the air cooling as the sun finally disappeared. Car radios clicked on softly, mixing crooners with early rock and roll, while laughter traveled from window to window across the parking lot. Friends piled into cars together, laughing too loudly, leaning across bench seats, elbows bumping like they didn't mind at all. And for those precious hours, you weren't a kid anymore. You were someone new, someone stepping past childhood into independence. And yet, everything still felt safe. No rush, no deadlines, no worries beyond whether your milkshake was melting too fast or whether tonight would finally be the night you worked up courage to hold someone's hand. Life was slower, even in moments that made your heartbeat race. After the drive-ins, there were the soda fountains. Oh, the soda fountains, polished countertops, spinning red vinyl stools, glass cake stands holding slices of homemade pie. And behind the counter, the soda jerk in his crisp white uniform, mixing phosphates, pouring cherry cola, stacking vanilla scoops into tall parfait glasses, the clink of spoons against glass, the whir of milkshake blenders, the bell over the door jingling whenever someone new stepped inside. Teenagers stood shoulder to shoulder, trading jokes, sharing gossip, talking about school dances and summer plans, and leaning quietly on the counter sometimes was you, waiting for your drink, waiting for your courage, waiting for that person whose eyes made you forget everything else in the room. Maybe your fingers played with the straw wrapper. Maybe your heart thumped louder than any jukebox song. Maybe you hoped someone would walk through the door and sit down right beside you. And when they did, you felt it. The first flutter of possibility, first independence, first romance, first moments when you realized you were growing up. Not all at once, but slowly, one shared milkshake at a time. We didn't have much, but in those nights under flickering neon, we had enough. We had laughter, friendship, butterflies in our stomach, and the simple thrill of belonging somewhere that wasn't home, yet still felt safe. And you didn't even know then that these small evenings would become some of the warmest memories of your entire life. Because now, when you think back on that era, you don't just remember the diners. You remember how it felt to be young, to feel excited about nothing more than a song on the jukebox, a strawberry shake shared between friends, or the chance that someone might finally notice you across the counter. Those places were never just buildings. They were stages for becoming, where childhood faded gently and young adulthood quietly began. And somewhere in those neon-lit nights, you started discovering who you were meant to be. Life was slower, but in the soft glow of drive-in diners and soda fountains, your heart was learning how to run. Chapter 5. Drive-in theaters, movies under the stars. Do you remember when going to the movies didn't mean standing in line inside a crowded building? It meant driving into the wide-open evening, windows down, radio playing quietly, the sky slowly fading from blue to purple as you followed a row of glowing taillights toward that giant outdoor screen waiting in the distance. Maybe you could already see it rising above the horizon, white and tall against the darkening sky, a promise of something special just ahead. And when you finally turned in, the gravel road crunched under your tires. Ushers in small flashlights waved you forward, helping guide your car into just the right spot. Row 4, maybe, side view to the screen. Perfect angle. You probably remember those moments before the movie ever started. Dad stepping out to hook the metal speaker onto the window, the click as it settled into place, adjusting the cord so it wouldn't pinch when the glass rolled up halfway. Maybe your mom spread a blanket across the hood or packed pillows into the back seat so younger siblings could curl up and get comfortable. You kids climbed into place, swinging your legs over warm vinyl seats, your breath slowing as the huge glowing screen flickered to life ahead of you. And something about it felt bigger than watching TV at home. The world felt wider out there under the open sky. The night belonged to everyone. Maybe this was your first date. Sitting just a little closer than you needed to, hands brushing accidentally, sharing popcorn between the armrests, both pretending not to notice the other, trying so hard not to look directly at you. You might remember glancing at the reflection in the windshield, stars faintly shining above the movie lights, and thinking, this feels grown up, this feels important. Or maybe you were part of a full family crew, kids stacked across the back seat, someone already drifting off before the previews ended, a younger sibling hugging a stuffed animal under the blanket as the speakers crackled and the opening music drifted across the lot. Somewhere nearby, a baby fussed soft enough not to bother anyone. Teenagers leaned against open car doors, laughing too loud. Parents chatted quietly between scenes. Radios everywhere tuned to the same frequency for sound. Hundreds of little worlds, all watching one massive story unfold together in the warm, open air. The screen glowed bright against the dark sky. Cowboys riding across the desert, musical dancers spinning under stage lights, monsters thrilling wide-eyed kids who pretended they weren't scared, romance stories flickering across the night while real lives mirrored them quietly inside the parked cars below. And all around you, the little symphony of the drive-in, the clink of soda bottles, the rustle of popcorn bags, the murmur of voices carried on the breeze. Some engines idled softly, doors closed and opened, metal speakers rattled gently with every word of dialogue, and above it all, crickets sang just beyond the edges of the lot. Wind brushed the blankets on car hoods. Summer air lingered warm against bare arms. And time slowed, really slowed, because even as the movie played, you weren't in a hurry to get anywhere else. There was no next distraction waiting, no glowing phone in your pocket, no buzzing reminders calling you away. Just this moment, together. Maybe you laid your head back against the seat and looked up between scenes, past the bright screen into the deep stretch of the stars, and thought about how huge the world felt, and yet how close and safe everything felt inside that car. And maybe without realizing it, you were living one of the memories that still comes back to you all these years later. Not because of what movie played that night, but because of how it felt to be there. Because it wasn't just about the screen. It was about who sat beside you, who shared the snacks, who cracked jokes during the slow parts, who eventually leaned their head on your shoulder when the story turned quiet. And sometimes, before the final scene even ended, the soft breathing from the back seat told you the youngest had already slipped into sleep, tucked under blankets, safe among laughter, headlights, and gentle nighttime sounds. The drive-in wasn't just a movie theater, it was a gathering place, a meeting ground for families, a rite of passage for teenagers, a space where the magic of stories met the tenderness of real life, where romance blossomed quietly beneath flickering screens, where friendships deepened between soda sips, where families created shared memories wrapped in comfort and closeness. And as the credits began to roll, headlights across the field flickered on one by one, glowing like fireflies drifting awake. cars slowly pulled forward, tires whispering over gravel again. Some couples lingered just a moment longer before driving away. Some kids had to be lifted gently from the back seat and carried into waiting arms, still dreaming through the quiet ride home. And as you drove back onto dark roads, the speaker unhooked, the blanket folded once more into the trunk. You carried something with you that no movie theater seat could ever provide. A feeling of belonging, of freedom, of warmth, a knowing that you had been part of something beautifully simple, something shared, something human. And when you think back now, it isn't the movie title that stays with you. It's the glow of that screen against the stars, the closeness of someone beside you, the gentle hush of nighttime falling across a parking lot full of parked dreams. Because life was slower then, and moments like these had room to become memories that would last a lifetime. Do you remember your first drive-in movie? Who were you with? Which car were you in? And what made that night stay with you all these years later? Take a moment and share your memory in the comments. Your story might awaken someone else's tonight. Chapter 6. Music on the Road. Do you remember when music didn't come from a screen, but from a glowing little radio dial? The kind with numbers lit up warm and amber. Your dad's fingers slowly turning the knob left and right, that light crackle between stations, until the song came through clear enough to make everyone hush for a second. It usually happened just as the car settled into cruise speed. Windows open, wind pouring in, the highway stretching straight ahead, and then a voice would rise from that dashboard speaker. Maybe it was Elvis. Maybe it was a smooth crooner with a velvet baritone. Maybe the tight harmonies of doo-wop floating through summer air. But no matter who it was, when that song came on, the ride instantly felt different. Because those songs, they didn't just play. They followed us down the highway. Maybe you remember leaning your head against the window, watching telephone poles flick past in steady rhythm. Click, 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 while the melody filled the car like something alive. The seat warm beneath you, your feet resting on the vinyl floor mat, your mom softly humming from the front seat without even realizing she was doing it. And your dad, not singing out loud, not really, just tapping the steering wheel in time to the beat. Those were the moments where nothing needed to be said. The music said it all. Because the radio wasn't just entertainment, it was company. It kept you awake on long rides. It carried excitement when the destination was still hours away, and somehow it filled the space between everyone in the car, connecting stories that didn't need words to be shared. Maybe in your family, there was always one station everyone depended on. The good one. The one that came in the clearest past the grain silos and open farmland. The one Dad protected like a treasure, refusing to touch the dial once the signal locked in right. You knew the rule. Once the good station came on, nobody messed with it. Every song became a moving memory. You didn't just hear them, you experienced them. The harmony of a doo-wop quartet playing while passing rows of cornfields. A crooning voice drifting through the air as the sun slowly dipped beneath the tree line. Elvis's energy bouncing through the car while siblings argued playfully in the back seat. A ballad unfolding while neon motel signs blinked awake off the roadside. And even if you didn't care much about the singers then, you cared about how the music made the ride feel. Safe, comforting, like Everything was moving just the way it was supposed to. Do you remember that static? That faint hiss between songs? The announcer's voice fading in and out as the car crossed invisible broadcast lines across the country. It meant you were moving. It meant this part of the journey was ending, and the next little memory was about to begin. Because the songs changed with the geography. Sometimes the station slipped away and your dad would gently retune the dial until there it was again. Another voice, another sound. But the feeling stayed the same. Each song became stitched to the highway. One tune always reminded you of long curves through distant hills. Another made you think of that gas stop where you spilled a soda. Another carried the smell of burgers from that roadside diner you'll never forget. You probably still have one song today, the kind that when you hear it, your hands don't grip the walker or grocery cart anymore. They remember the old vinyl seat edge. Your eyes don't see your living room. They see motion. Fields sliding past the window, sun flickering through tree branches, the reflection of your younger face in the glass, dreaming about all the places you'd go someday, because music has that power. It doesn't just play, it travels. It pulls a person backward through time faster than any photograph ever could. Those songs weren't just voices on the radio. They were emotional signposts. They marked moments like, this is where I first felt grown. This is where I learned the world was big. This is where my family still fit together inside one car. And even when the radio finally clicked off, after the destination arrived, after the engine quieted, after suitcases were unloaded and motel room keys jingled in Dad's hand, the songs stayed with you. They followed you into sleep that night, and years later, they follow you still, because whenever you hear them again, at the grocery store, in an old commercial, on a dusty vinyl record, everything else briefly disappears. The miles fall away, the seasons retreat. And you're back there, in the back seat, windows down, music filling the car, moving forward into a future you couldn't imagine yet, while building memories you didn't know would become treasures. Those songs didn't just soundtrack the journey, they became the journey. And maybe that's why, even now, long after the dashboards changed, long after the radios turned digital, long after the highways grew louder than the music, those old melodies still feel like home, because life was slower then, and the music had time to stay with us. Tell me in the comments, what song takes you straight back to the back seat of your childhood? Was it an Elvis tune, a doo-wop harmony, a smooth crooner's voice on an AM station late at night? Share the song that still brings the road back to life for you. Chapter 7, Young Freedom and First Cars. Do you remember the first time freedom didn't feel like a dream anymore, but something solid you could actually hold? For so many of us, it came in the smallest, most ordinary way possible. A set of keys resting heavy in the palm of your hand. Not fancy keys, not shiny new ones. Just a few worn pieces of metal on a thin ring. Maybe one for the ignition, one for the trunk, one whose purpose you never quite figured out. But the moment they dropped into your hand, everything changed. You probably didn't even realize it at first. You just stood there quietly, turning them over with your fingers, feeling their cool weight, listening to the faint jingle as if that sound itself carried a promise of movement, of independence, of the world finally opening a little wider. Maybe that first car wasn't pretty. Maybe it had faded paint that the sun had bleached to a dull pastel. Maybe the chrome had pits and scratches from years of service. Maybe the seats smelled faintly of old vinyl, dust, and gasoline. But to you, it was beautiful. The first car was never judged by how it looked. It was judged by what it represented. Freedom to leave the house without asking permission. Freedom to drive nowhere in particular, just to drive. Freedom to pick up friends, turn up the radio, and let the open road decide where the night would take you. And before the keys ever came into your hand, there was the work. You probably remember those summer jobs well, stocking shelves at the corner grocery, mowing lawns beneath the blazing sun, washing dishes in the back of diners, sweeping floors at the hardware store, pumping gas in a stained uniform while the smell of fuel soaked into your clothes. Every hour meant a few more coins dropped into a jar. Every paycheck folded carefully into an envelope marked with one word: car. Some of us counted the days between paychecks like we were counting down to Christmas. You'd sit on your bed or at the kitchen table, spreading the bills out in neat rows, doing the math again and again. How close am I now? Each dollar felt like a mile closer to that moment when you could finally roll your window down and feel the wind on your face from the driver's seat. Maybe you'd already picked out your dream car in your mind. You stared at those glossy magazine ads, watched every car that passed the sidewalk closely, walked slow through used car lots after school, running your fingers over dusty fenders while trying to imagine your reflection behind a wheel. Sometimes your parents came along to inspect the choices. They knocked on doors to check the sturdiness, listened to the engine idle. But secretly, you were already sitting in that seat in your imagination, already driving away, already free. Then came the day it finally happened. Cash exchanged hands. Paperwork signed in a cramped office that smelled faintly of ink and cigarettes. And suddenly, those keys were yours. Do you remember how it felt the first time you slid into your own driver's seat? The way everything looked different from behind the wheel, like the world had shifted angles slightly. Your posture changed, your confidence changed, your pulse picked up. You weren't a kid riding along anymore. You were driving your own story forward. The steering wheel felt huge beneath your hands. The seat didn't quite adjust right. The radio crackled more than it played music. But none of that mattered, because the moment you turned the key, heard the engine catch, felt the vibration move through the car, your heart jumped in your chest. You eased out of the driveway slowly, checked mirrors, signal blinking on the dash, every motion careful and deliberate, like you were holding something precious that might break if you rushed. And maybe your parents stood on the porch watching you go, not waving much, just standing still, their faces proud and a little wistful, because they knew something had changed too. And soon the rides began, picking up your friends one by one. There was always someone leaning halfway out a window, calling to neighbors as you pulled away. Laughter filled small car cabins. Music poured from crackling speakers, doo-wop harmonies, early rock rhythms, ball games trailing off into static when the signal faded. There were drives nowhere, just looping the same few streets again and again because gas was expensive, but freedom needed motion. You felt older, braver, bigger than the boundaries that had once felt so close. Maybe that first car carried you to a first job interview, a first late-night diner run, your first real date. Maybe it helped you leave home for the first time at college, training, work, driving into the unknown with all your belongings crammed into the back seat. And maybe, years later, you never quite loved another car the same way again. Because no matter how comfortable or advanced the vehicles became, they never gave you that first feeling back. The feeling of becoming someone new, of crossing an invisible line between childhood and adulthood. That moment when freedom stopped being something you waited for and became something you drove toward. And maybe right now, as you think about that first set of keys, you can still hear the jingle, still feel the cool metal resting in your palm, still see yourself sitting there, hands on the wheel, heart full of excitement, the world stretching open in front of you like a brand new highway. Because that wasn't just a car. That was the day your life began to move forward on your own terms. And maybe you remember it the same way too, when we didn't have much, but we had enough. Chapter 8. Sunsets Through the Windshield. Do you remember that special light, that late-day glow that slipped through the windshield and landed softly across the dashboard? Not bright, not blinding, just warm enough to turn everything gold. You might remember sitting there quietly, watching the sun dip lower over the road ahead, sun flares dancing off chrome trim, dust motes floating lazily in the air like tiny sparks of summer. Your palm rested on that wide steering wheel, smooth, cool, the faint vibration of the engine moving through your hands. You probably weren't thinking about anything at all, just driving, just being there, just existing inside the moment. And yet somehow, these are the moments you still remember. Maybe it was a short drive home from church. Maybe you were headed toward the grocery store with Mom, windows cracked open just enough to let the breeze brush your face. Or maybe it was one of those long evening rides, no destination in mind, just miles ahead and nowhere special to be. The car filled with gentle silence, not awkward silence, not empty silence, but the kind that felt full, full of comfort, full of togetherness, full of knowing you didn't need to talk to feel connected. And outside the glass, telephone poles rolled past in steady rhythm. Hayfields glowed amber under the lowering sun. Distant tree lines blurred softly along the horizon. And the sky became a painting you never meant to step away from. Soft pinks blending into oranges, lavender brushing into blue. One cloud stretched thin like a feather, another glowing at the edges, like it was holding its breath. And without realizing it, you took it all in. Maybe someone in the back seat asked, "Are we almost home?" Maybe the radio crackled quietly beside you, a slow crooner song trailing off between stations, or the distant echo of a ball game drifting through static. Maybe the driver tapped the dashboard with a finger to the music. The windows were down. Wind played through loose hair and shirt sleeves. The smell of warm pavement mixed with freshly cut grass. And the road ahead curved gently, never rushing you forward, never demanding anything but your presence. It's strange how memory works. You might not remember the exact day. You might not remember the exact route, but you remember the feeling, the way the sunset made everything feel softer, the way your heart slowed to the same pace as the passing scenery, the way time seemed wider then, as if the hours stretched bigger, slower, kinder. You remember how easy it was to be content. No clocks ticking loudly in the background, no distractions pulling your attention away, no endless list of places you were supposed to be. Just you, the open road, the people you loved beside you, and the quiet understanding that this moment was enough. And even if you couldn't have put it into words back then, something in you knew. These were the good moments, the moments you didn't rush through, the moments you let breathe, the ones that would stay with you long after the miles rolled on. Maybe you leaned your head against the window, the cool glass pressed gently against your temple. Outside, the sun sat just above the horizon, so bright you had to squint, casting long shadows from passing barns and trees. Each mile marker slipped quietly behind you. Each bend carried you deeper into that sunset glow. And you probably didn't say a word. You didn't need to. You were exactly where you were supposed to be. It wasn't about where you were going. It was about how it felt to be going there, together. You remember moments like this, even if you've never told anyone, because these memories didn't shout to be remembered. They whispered. They settled in quietly, taking root inside you, waiting for the day they'd rise up again when you thought about a long summer evening, a peaceful drive, a dashboard glowing softly as the sky burned along the horizon. And when you think about it now, it's almost as if those sunsets stretched farther, lasted longer, wrapped the world in a gentler light than the ones we see today. Back then, we didn't rush past beauty. We let it unfold at the pace of the road. We didn't capture moments with cameras. We absorbed them. We carried them inside us. Maybe you can still see it now. That shimmering ribbon of highway, the orange glow spilling across the hood, the silhouettes of the people you loved reflected faintly in the glass. And a feeling, that calm, steady feeling, like the world for just a little while was exactly as it should be. Because that's how life felt then. Not hurried, not noisy, not overwhelming, just simple, just full, just still enough to remember. Life was slower then. Chapter 9. Sunday Drives and Community Life. Do you remember Sundays like that? Not rushed, not crowded with plans, not packed with noise, just gentle. The kind of mornings where the whole house felt quieter than usual. Sunlight slipping through lace curtains, clean clothes laid out on the beds, the smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen, and outside, the driveway waiting. You probably remember climbing into the car after church, shoes polished, hair brushed just right, the seats cool at first, warming as everyone settled in. Dad taking his place behind the big white steering wheel. Mom smoothing her skirt in the passenger seat. Kids sliding across the bench, elbows brushing, knees touching. The car door closing with that familiar heavy click. And once again, the family was together inside that rolling little world. And the parking lot. Do you remember those church lots on Sunday afternoons? Rows and rows of shining American cars. Sunlight dancing across chrome grills, tail fins catching the sky like small wings. Neighbors greeting neighbors, men tipping their hats, women sharing smiles. Kids darting between bumpers until someone gently called them back. You probably heard your parents exchanging warm conversation with other families right there between the cars. How's your mother doing? Did you see the new place the Johnsons built? You bringing the kids to the picnic next week? Community happened right there, between open car doors, folded programs tucked into purses and jackets, laughter floating on the breeze, not through phones, not through messages typed on glass, through voices, faces. Being physically present with one another. And then came the Sunday drive. Sometimes there wasn't a plan at all, no reservations, no schedules, just Let's take a little drive. Do you remember that feeling, watching the neighborhood unfold through the window as the car rolled forward? Porches with people resting in swing chairs, kids still in church clothes riding bicycles in slow circles, front lawns freshly cut, that clean grass smell drifting through the open windows. Someone would always wave. You didn't even know everyone's name, but you waved back. Because that's what you did. Community felt wide back then, not limited to your own home, but stretching across your whole neighborhood. The road would curve away from town, and suddenly you were passing farmland, fence posts ticking by in steady rhythm, wide blue skies stretching farther than seemed possible. Maybe your family headed toward a small country diner, the kind with a bell over the door and a scent of fried chicken floating into the parking lot. Maybe you drove to a park where picnic tables waited under tall trees. Or maybe you drove toward nowhere in particular, because sometimes the drive itself was the event. No one needed a destination. In the car, conversation came easily. Dad would point out a new barn built along the road. Mom might say how nice the weather felt compared to last Sunday. Someone in the back seat would spot cows and start counting them aloud. Comic books were passed around. Crackers were shared from folded paper bags. There was laughter, the light kind, the kind that doesn't need a punchline. Just being together created its own joy. And as the miles rolled on, you probably leaned your forehead against the window, watching the mirrored sky slide past, the hum of tires beneath you creating that familiar lull, that peaceful quiet where everything felt right, not perfect, not grand, just right. Life wasn't loud then. It didn't rush at you. It unfolded gently, mile by mile, window after window, moment after moment. On those Sunday drives, something invisible was happening. You were learning what belonging felt like, not from speeches, not from classrooms, but from moments, from the simple act of sitting shoulder to shoulder with the people you loved, watching the world roll quietly by. Maybe you didn't realize it at the time, but those drives were shaping you. They taught you that togetherness didn't come from events or big gatherings. It came from presence, from sharing time, from simply showing up for one another. You likely saw the same families on the road week after week. That same blue sedan, that green station wagon, the shiny black coupe with the wide tail fins, horn taps exchanged in passing, smiles through windshields. Without words, you recognized each other. We're all out here together today. That was community in the 1950s. It wasn't formal, it wasn't forced, it was natural. After hours on the road, maybe you returned home just as the sun began its slow descent. The house waiting quietly, the car engine ticking as it cooled, parents carrying purses and jackets back inside, kids hesitating a moment on the front steps, not quite ready for Sunday to end. Because you knew Monday would bring busy days again, school bells, work routines, chores and responsibilities. But Sundays were different. They were about moving slowly, about being together, about reminding yourselves, before the noise of the week returned, that you belonged to something. And decades later, these are the moments that remain, not the errands, not the appointments, not the scheduled details, but the feeling of sitting in that car with the people who were your world. Sometimes the drive wasn't the destination, it was the togetherness, that sense of being held inside a family, inside a community, inside a simpler rhythm of life. And even now, when you remember Sundays of your youth, you might still feel it, that warmth in your chest, that quiet smile forming on your lips. Because those slow Sunday drives never really left you. They just became part of who you are. And in remembering them now, you're stepping back into a time when the world didn't feel so hurried, when neighbors still waved, when families still rolled down the road together, and when life was slower then. Chapter 10. Radio Voices and News on the Road. You remember how the radio always came on before the engine even fully settled. That small pause, that soft click, then the faint crackle, like the world leaning closer to you. No screen, no buttons glowing, just a warm amber dial and a single twisting knob. And suddenly, the whole country was riding in the seat beside you. The weather first, always the weather. Clear skies across the Midwest, cool front moving through tonight. You might not have even known where the Midwest really was, but the words still made you feel part of something bigger. Every forecast sounded like a promise that tomorrow would arrive exactly as planned, and then the ball games would begin. That voice, steady, patient, alive, bottom of the seventh, runner on second. Even if you didn't love baseball, you listened anyway, because those voices felt familiar, like neighbors you trusted. They didn't shout at you, they talked with you, keeping pace with the long road stretching ahead of the windshield. And when the signal faded, you didn't rush to change stations. That gentle hiss between towns became part of the trip. It meant you were traveling far enough to outrun yesterday's voices and catch tomorrow's. As the dial slowly drifted, new voices would slip into place. Farm reports, traffic updates, church announcements, community potluck this Sunday. Those weren't just news items, they were reminders. You belonged to places you had never even visited. And every town, every county, every little dot on that endless map had its own voice waiting in the air. Maybe your dad kept the radio low, so low you leaned closer from the bench seat, straining to hear beneath the rumble of the tires. Maybe your mom hummed along to the commercials before turning to remind someone to sit up straight. Maybe you watched the glowing dial slide from station to station and marveled at how little turns could change everything. A twist to the left, country music drifted in. A twist to the right, big band trumpets brightened the cabin. Another fraction of a turn, and there it was, that song you'd been hoping to hear, a moment seized by accident. Because back then, you didn't choose when to hear what you loved. It found you when the timing was right. And oh, when the news breaks interrupted the music, those serious voices felt heavier somehow. Election results, storm warnings, headlines that adults went quiet for. As a child, you didn't fully understand the words, but you understood the tone. Serious meant the grown-up straightened. Serious meant the ride went quieter. Serious meant you gazed out the window a little longer, watching telephone poles drift by like silent metronomes. Even then, the radio taught you something without saying it. Life was happening everywhere, all at once, even beyond the visible road. And yet, right there in that car, time never felt rushed. The announcers moved slowly. Stories unfolded patiently. Pauses were allowed. Silence was never something to fill. It was something to rest inside. That's what made those voices special. They didn't hurry you along life. They rode with you through it, and on long night drives. When the windows were down and the air ran cool, the radio became the only light inside the car. That dim orange glow, softening every face. Parents' eyes steady on the road. Kids growing drowsy and listening to voices they couldn't see, but somehow trusted. Trusted like old friends whispering through the dark. And just before sleep came, you might catch yourself wondering, who were these people talking to you? Did they know they were tucking a whole generation into the back seats of America? Did they know their steady words were becoming memories? Because now, even decades later, you can still hear them. The tone, the pacing, that familiar cadence slipping back into your mind when the world grows too loud. You don't need the radio anymore to hear it. Those voices live quietly inside you. They're tucked into the space where childhood still lingers, where long highways never seem to end, where the air smells faintly of vinyl and summer nights, where the car keeps rolling forward, but the memory never leaves the seat beside you. And every once in a while, when you pass an old AM station on the dial or hear a distant play-by-play echo through static, your heart recognizes it instantly, not as news, not as sound, but as a voice from the road that once told you the world may be wide, but you were never traveling alone. Life was slower then. Chapter 11. Look how far we've come back then. We didn't know how quickly the world would change. We didn't know that the small routines of those days would one day become treasures. That the simple drives we barely noticed would turn into memories we would quietly return to, again and again, when the house felt a little too quiet, or the years felt a little too heavy. All we knew was how that wind felt through the open windows, the way it fluttered the corner of a folded road map, the way it cooled our sun-warmed faces when the car first pulled onto the open highway, the way it carried the smell of cut grass, distant fields, fresh pavement, and summer rain, each mile mixing the world together like a gentle breeze bottled into memory. We didn't call it nostalgia then. We called it just another drive. And that may have been the most beautiful part of all, because none of us realized we were standing in the middle of something sacred. Maybe you remember moments like that, not big dramatic moments, but quiet ones. Moments that didn't seem important at the time. Sitting in the passenger seat, elbow tucked against the door, watching the road slide past without thinking. Listening to the radio fade in and out as towns passed by. Watching telephone poles tick past like a slow clock. Marking time without us noticing it was moving at all. You weren't in a hurry then. None of us were. There was nowhere to rush to, only somewhere to go, together. And every car ride felt like a small promise, a promise that the day could hold something new, a promise that the people riding beside you would still be there when you arrived, a promise that the road ahead didn't need to be perfect, just open. What we felt in those years wasn't excitement. It was a gentle belief, a belief that things were steady, that families would keep gathering in the same cars, that neighbors would keep waving from porches, that Sunday drives would never stop. Back then, the future didn't feel complicated. It felt wide. It felt full of possibility. It felt close enough to touch through the windshield. We didn't measure our lives in milestones yet. We measured them in ordinary drives, trips to the grocery store with the windows down, late evening rides home when the sky turned purple, weekend visits that stretched long enough for stories to start in the front seat and finish quietly in the back, each memory gently stacking itself onto the next. Without us realizing, we were building a lifetime. And maybe now, you look back and realize something you couldn't see back then. It wasn't the size of our dreams that mattered. It was the steadiness of them. It was how we all believed, without ever saying it aloud, that tomorrow would look a lot like today. And that felt comforting, safe, certain. But time does what time always does. It keeps moving, even when we stay still. Roads changed, cars changed, radio voices faded into new kinds of noise, families grew, spread, traveled farther apart, and the drives that once filled our days slowly became memories we returned to instead. Yet, here's the part that often surprises us. Those old moments, they didn't disappear. They didn't fade. They lived quietly inside us the whole time, waiting for the sound of an engine, waiting for the scent of warm vinyl, waiting for the sight of sunlight flaring across a dashboard, waiting for a song on the radio to remind us that we once sat in a car full of people who meant everything to us, and maybe still do. You might not remember where all those drives went, but you probably remember how they felt. The easy laughter, the unspoken togetherness, the peaceful silence when no one felt the need to say anything at all, when just being there together was enough. And when you reflect on how far we've come, it's not the technology or the busy schedules that stand out most. It's the pace. We moved slower, we noticed more, we lingered inside moments instead of rushing past them. We didn't document our lives, we lived them. We didn't curate our memories, we carried them. Do you remember how time felt back then? Not fast, not heavy, just steady. As if days unfolded gently instead of racing forward. As if every summer stretched longer than it really was. As if car rides never quite ended, only rolled on into new stories. Looking back now, those drives weren't about transportation. They were about connection, about sitting just inches from the people who made up our entire world, about learning how to belong, how to listen, how to share silence, how to be patient. And somehow, without a single lesson being written down, we learned what mattered most by watching road lines glide beneath us. That being together mattered more than arriving quickly. That familiar faces mattered more than new places. That memories weren't born from speed. They were born from stillness inside motion, because the truth is, we were never just driving forward. We were quietly growing, becoming who we would one day be, learning how to love normal days, learning how to be present without realizing what presence truly meant. Back then, we didn't know how quickly the world would change. We didn't know the neighborhood porches would grow quieter. We didn't know the familiar radio voices would be replaced by endless silence between songs. We didn't know that even the simplest routines could one day feel extraordinary, just because they were gone. We only knew how that wind felt through open windows, and how every car ride felt like a small promise. And here's the gentle truth that settles in as we look back. It wasn't the road that made those years golden. It was the people riding beside us. It was the togetherness, the closeness, the ordinary comfort of sharing space and time without rushing to fill either. Because when we think about how far we've come, we're not really measuring distance. We're measuring connection. we're remembering the version of ourselves that sat quietly in that passenger seat, watching the world roll past, without knowing how precious that simple act truly was. And even now, those rides are still traveling with us, in the way certain sunsets stop us in our tracks, in the way music from another time makes our chest tighten with memories, in the way the hum of tires on pavement still whispers, life was slower then. And maybe, in remembering it together tonight, it slows us down once more. Final loop closure. Return to the open road. You can almost smell the warm vinyl again, that sun-heated seat beneath you, the faint sweetness of wax polish mixed with gasoline drifting through an open window. And listen closely. You can still hear it. The soft hum of the engine at idle, that steady, gentle vibration beneath the floorboards, the quiet click of the turn signal keeping time like a small heartbeat. Beside you, the road is there again, stretching forward, unfolding into the horizon just like it always did. Maybe you see the dashboard glowing softly in the fading light, numbers steady, needles resting like they're holding their breath. Maybe your hand finds the familiar feel of the wide steering wheel, smooth, warm to the touch, while your eyes follow the long ribbon of pavement slipping beneath the windshield. You're sitting there once more, not rushing anywhere, no hurry to arrive, just moving together. Life didn't feel so crowded then. Thoughts had room to wander. Silence didn't feel empty, it felt peaceful. You watched clouds drift past the side window, counted telephone poles flashing by in perfect rhythm, noticed the way sunlight danced across the chrome of passing cars. And maybe, without knowing it, you felt something settle inside you, a sense that you were safe, that you belonged, that the world, at least for that moment, was exactly where it should be. Because in those drives, it was never just about where you were headed. It was about the people beside you, the voices floating from the back seat, the laughter that rose and fell with the miles, the quiet comfort of not needing to say anything at all. It was about how the road gently pulled families together, mile after mile, memory after memory. And even now, years later, when you think back on those days, it isn't the destinations that rise first in your mind. It's the feeling, the warmth of togetherness, the calm of steady motion, the wonder of seeing America roll past your window before the world learned to move so fast, because life was slower then, and somehow we noticed everything more. Tonight, as we sit here remembering together, you and I, we're not just looking back at old cars, neon signs, or forgotten highways. We're reconnecting with moments that shaped who we became, moments of simplicity, moments of closeness, moments that taught us how it felt to be present. And maybe, for just a little while, those moments found their way back to us. Before you go, tell us your favorite motoring memory. Was it your first car? The keys heavy in your hand, the seat still unfamiliar? Was it your favorite road trip? Miles of laughter, map folds, and gas station stops? Or maybe it was the drive-in movie that meant the most. That glowing screen under the stars, blankets pulled tight, someone special beside you. Your stories matter. They keep this golden era breathing. And if these memories felt like home to you, sharing this video helps keep them alive, because somewhere, someone else may be sitting quietly tonight, waiting to remember too.